All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Emily, as you can see on the screen, and I'm the head of learning and culture at Nobu Hotel, London Portman Square, which is quite a new hotel on the scene in London. So I've been invited today to give a little bit of an overview of myself and a bit about my career journey, and then a little bit about what I do now as well. So hopefully some of you on the call today might be looking at becoming interested in a career in hospitality, and if you're not already, then hopefully I will be able to give you a bit of advice and some tips and tricks and entice you into, well, what I believe is a very is a very interesting career and a great industry to be in. So just to give you a little bit of background in my life. So a bit about me. I was brought up in the Middle East. Some of you may know the picture that you can see there. It's actually of Petra in Jordan. So I was brought up in Jordan with my family, and I lived there for about 10 years. And my father was actually always in hospitality as well. So he managed a variety of hotels around the Middle Eastern area. And so I spent a lot of my childhood living there and spent a lot of my childhood being in and around hotels a lot of the time, mostly not enjoying them as a guest, but basically being there because my dad was working in them. But I became very familiar with them very quickly. But at this point had never really sort of thought about it as a career. It was more just something that one of my parents did, and I was just, there living in the country that he was working in, and that was about it. So I spent about 10 years living abroad with my family, and then when it came to doing my GCSEs and my A-levels, I came back to the UK. And in all honesty, when I came back to the UK to do my education, I didn't really spend much time thinking about what I wanted to do when I finished school. I sort of went through school. I would say I probably didn't grab it by the horns and get involved in every club and sports activity there was. I did okay at school. I sort of got some okay grades and was able to apply for university, but I didn't really think at that point about what I wanted to do. And if I could kind of go back to my sort of 16-year-old self now, I think one of the first pieces of advice I would give myself would be that when you have opportunities at school to go out and visit different industries, go on sort of, tour days and that sort of thing, or have opportunities to do work experience, to really take the opportunity and to do it, because it's otherwise quite challenging when you don't have necessarily that support and that advice and that avenue at school. So going back to sort of 16 years old, I would definitely say the first thing I should have done was get on the work experience, get involved, and kind of do all of the things that were presented to me as opportunities. And I think things like these webinars are fantastic. It really starts to give you a great insight to the different industries that are out there and the different jobs you can do, because without that background information, it's a bit of a difficult place to start. So because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do when I left school, I decided to apply to university and do a degree that was in what I enjoyed doing at school. And what I enjoyed doing at school was I loved theatre, and I also liked history as well. So I did a degree in theatre and history at Oxford Brookes University, and I had a great time, had a great 3 years. I did my degree, and I think I probably did a degree in partying as well. Had fun, met lots of people, but sort of came out of university and thought, well, great, I've got my degree, but what am I going to do with it now? And I think if I had wanted to do drama or to do theatre in the long run, it would have been the perfect degree for me. But I've never been a hugely competitive person by nature, and I think to be in the theatre industry, you have to have that competitive nature about you, because it's constant competition. So it wasn't going to be something that would be a career for me. So when I left university, I thought, right, well, now it's time to get a job. And later on in life, I did do a qualification that is now related to what I actually do, which is learning and development, which is a section of human resources or people and culture, depending on what industries call it now. And I did my CIPD qualification in that. But it wasn't until much later on, and when I was sort of 25 or 26, and I did it when I was working full time, which was incredibly challenging. So I think going back to those sort of university years, I probably would have thought, let's really try and do something that's going to contribute to what I want to do in the long run. But having said that, very glad that I did my CIPD qualification, and it's given me a great, great theoretical background to what I do as a profession now. But thinking about, what it is that I wanted to do, I sort of thought about a few things and tried to understand what I wanted in terms of who I am as a person. And I thought to myself, well, I've got experience in customer service all throughout school and all throughout, the sort of latter part of school, and all throughout university. I worked part-time in front of house in a pub and restaurant. So I had about 5 years on and off experience of waitressing, bartending, taking phone calls, working in a kitchen, and quite a few elements to customer service. And I loved that as a job, because I loved interacting with guests. As cliche as it sounds, lots of people say that who like working in hospitality, but I loved interacting with guests. I loved talking to people. I loved kind of seeing new people every day, and I loved the active side of the job. I also knew to myself that I was familiar with living outside of the UK, which was great. So I was, relatively confident in the fact that I wasn't necessarily just thinking I need to look at options in the UK. I could look at moving out of the UK. I thought to myself, I know the hospitality world quite well, because that's sort of where I've grown up, and my family's background. And I knew that wherever I work, I want to be treated like a valued colleague and a valued employee. So these are some of the things I thought to myself. And I thought, okay, if I don't want to be front facing in terms of front of house roles like reception or front office or food and beverage, but I do enjoy being in hospitality, what about thinking about doing a career that involves being more behind the scenes in hospitality? And that's where the idea of human resources came in. So I thought at this point, I didn't actually know that much about what human resources did. I knew that there was a bit of sort of hiring people and something to do with employees and, a few other bits and pieces. And actually quite often what people think when they think of human resources is they think it's where people go when they get into trouble, which is definitely not what we ever want our department to be thought of as. And luckily now it's not really thought of that anymore. So I thought, let me see if I can find an opportunity to do some work experience. So I contacted various places in the UK, found it a little bit challenging to get work experience. And then I thought, actually, what's stopping me from going abroad again? So I contacted some hotels out in the Middle East, and I got a response from one in Abu Dhabi. So I decided to take my hard-earned cash from the pub and restaurant and to buy a plane ticket and to go out to Abu Dhabi for 2 weeks and do some work experience. And that was in a place called Park Rotana and Park Arjan, which is, so Rotana is a Middle Eastern-based hospitality company. They have around 50 to 60 hotels, mostly in the Middle Eastern area. And they are 3, 4 and 5 star hotels. So they have a kind of an umbrella of different types of hotels within what they offer. So I went out and spent 2 weeks there in their human resources department. And I had such a great time, but I realized very quickly when I was in the department that actually everything that the team in human resources were doing, which related to learning and development, was what I found much more interesting. So I actually ended up spending the 2 weeks with learning and development. And to give you a bit of an overview of what learning and development does, you may be familiar with it, you may not, is essentially it's continuing to develop colleagues within a business. That you have a learning and development function in most businesses, and we are there to basically provide the right skills for every person in every role within the business, whether that be the technical skills, so the service skills like how to hold a tray or to open a bottle of wine, all the way through to the soft skills as well, which is to do with communication, people management, interviewing skills, training skills, all of those things. And so I really enjoyed all of that aspect. I enjoyed observing how they did the orientation, which is when you welcome new joiners to a business and you train them up and make sure that they're ready for their first day on the job. I enjoyed the interaction side of it. And out of all of the functions within human resources, it's kind of the happiest part of human resources. So that was an element that I really enjoyed. So after the 2 weeks of work experience, I came back to the UK and was really pleased when a few weeks later I was called by the director of HR over in that same hotel to say, our learning and development person is actually leaving and we're opening up a lower level role. Would you be interested in applying? And I thought, well, what's stopping me from going? So I applied, and I ended up spending 3 years in Abu Dhabi in 2 different properties, and worked as a learning and development officer, and worked in the first property under a director of learning and development who gave me great direction. I had very, very little experience, and they took a massive chance on me, actually a huge chance on me. But he trained me up really well. And then I moved to another property where I actually opened it as a very small property on my own, which was an amazing opportunity to be able to implement all of those elements of learning and development that create the department. So I managed to do it all from scratch under the guidance of Rotana Corporate Office, which was amazing. And then after the 3 years, I thought I actually now have had some great experience in hospitality, and I would love to see what it's like back in the UK, and what's the same and what's different, and from an HR aspect as well, because human resources out in the Middle East operates differently because the laws are different to the UK. So I wanted to get an understanding of what it was like back in my home country. So I've had, over the last few years, experience in some fantastic hotels. I've been lucky enough to work at the Royal Garden Hotel in High Street, Kensington, at Claridge's in Mayfair, which is part of the Marylebone group, and now at Nobu Hotel, London, Portman Square. And all of them have offered, you know, very different experiences, fantastic experiences, and has enabled me to see lots of different types of hospitality, all the way from sort of more of a business style hotel, which is what the Royal Garden is like, to Claridge's, which is extreme luxury, to Nobu Portman Square, which is what we would define as luxury lifestyle. It's got that kind of somewhere in between, and it's been fantastic. So a little bit of information I think would be useful here at what it is you can do in hotels as a career. So my role, as I've sort of started to explain already within my position in Abu Dhabi, specifically at Nobu Portman Square, my role is to lead the learning and development function. My title is learning and culture. So part of my role is to make sure that there are learning opportunities across the board for all of our employees, and also looking into what are the specific needs of the business. So we look at what are some things that are happening in the world externally that are going to impact our hotel and we may need to act upon, and then what are some things that are happening within the hotel internally that we may need to act upon. So that could be things like if you were to open a new restaurant, or if you were to change some of the products that you were selling in the spa, if you were to change the style of service in one of the restaurants, if you were to change things within the housekeeping. So I don't know, it could be the types of linen that you use, or the fold of the towels you use, where might colleagues need to be trained differently in certain things. And then on the external side, it could be things like, how COVID and Brexit have impacted our business, and what we might need to do, and how we might need to change what we do in order to respond to those different elements. And that involves sometimes re-educating people and training them in different skills to be able to carry out what they need to carry out effectively. The other aspect of what we do is we work very closely with schools and colleges and apprenticeship providers to attract new talent into the hospitality industry. We're always looking for new talent, people who are passionate about the hospitality industry and excited to work there. So that's a big element of what we do. And then also making sure that when employees are at the hotel, that they have an amazing experience, that their well-being is taken care of, and that they feel like they can come to work and do the best job they can do every single day. Whatever department you might be in, whatever your job might involve, that you feel happy and that you feel motivated to do the best job that you can do. In terms of the hospitality industry and sort of the different departments, let's say, that you can find within a hotel, you've got lots of operational departments. So those are, as we briefly touched on before, housekeeping. So that's the department that takes care of all of the rooms and the public areas of the hotel, making sure that they are clean, tidy, and in great condition for the guest to experience. In addition to that, they also take care of all of the laundry and all of the uniforms for all of the colleagues, making sure that we have everything available and ready when it needs to be. You should see the pile of chef whites that sits in the housekeeping department, that they're all fresh and clean and ready to go. We've got the reception team, who are in charge of checking in and checking out the guests, along with the guest services team, who take care of special anniversaries and celebrations and that kind of thing. So they are the ones that will go into the guest room and put balloons up and special amenities, which are then organised through guest services and in-room dining. So in-room dining are the department that take food to the guest's room when they order it. We've then got the restaurants, we've got the lounge, the Nobu restaurant, two different teams that take care of two different food and beverage areas of the hotel. And then we've got lots of back of house roles as well. So we've got finance. Without finance, we can't operate because, well, nobody would be paid, including ourselves, and that's very important. We have our sales and marketing team, who are there to make sure that we represent a great image of the hotel to potential clients and potential employees. So they're there to sell the hotel and make it look great and make it attractive. You can see that lovely image of the Nobu hotel down at the bottom. That's sort of, those sorts of images are what marketing help us to put together. We then also have departments like reservations, who take calls for potential guests wanting to book rooms and wanting to book tables at the restaurant. And then we have the people team, which is the team that I sit in. And the people and culture team, as well as the learning and development side, we also take care of recruitment. So that means inviting people for interviews and recruiting people into new roles. We're responsible for, once we have people come on board, to try and make sure they stay with us. And like I said, that they're happy and that they have a great experience with us. We're also there to sometimes do the slightly less happy things, which are if we have colleagues that potentially don't follow the rules, or where something might go wrong, we may have to manage that process, because we need to make sure that everybody follows the rules that we have in place as a hotel. But equally, we're also there to support anyone that may not be happy for any reason within the hotel as well. So if they have an issue or a challenge that they need to talk through, then we're there to support that as well. Excuse me. But we're also there to make sure that we have fun. So we're there to, have great initiatives. So we have things like monthly drinks, we have annual parties, we do lots of amazing things for charity. We recently had a charity bake sale where we raised £250 for a local charity. And all of these different initiatives, we actively encourage our employees to get involved in and to join in as well. We have a social and wellness committee that's made up of around 20 colleagues, who are there to encourage people to get involved, to help organise the events, and to make sure that we have fun, because work takes up around 85% of your week, and it's important that you enjoy yourself whilst you're there as well. So I've sort of got ahead of myself really there. That was a little bit of an overview of my current role, but I think I've probably explained that enough so far. Of course, later on, if you have any questions, you can ask me then. In terms of why hospitality, I mean, I genuinely think it's a fantastically rewarding industry. I think there's something new to see every day. I think the environment that most hotels manage to create for employees is a genuinely nice place to be. There's a great sense of camaraderie. We work towards common goals together. We don't encourage siloed working where departments only work towards their individual goals. We get a lot of feedback, especially at Nobu Hotel, Portman Square, where a lot of our new joiners say that they can genuinely feel the culture that we talk about in onboarding, which is a really special thing to be able to say. Every business has a mission statement and values that they talk about, but genuinely, when you step into our doors, I feel and others feel that you have that strong sense of culture. And our values are family, smile, kokoro, which is everything from the heart, and crafted as well, which is all about kind of your craft and the skills that you have to put towards your job role. There are diverse career opportunities, and we also understand that you may start in one department and decide eventually that maybe you'd like to move to another department. We have a lot of cross internal movement within the hotel, and we like to support that as best as we can. And as well, it's an industry where you spend your days making people feel happy. And I think that actually on its own can feel very rewarding. So where in my role, we mostly do that for our colleagues, lots of our colleagues are there to do it for our guests. In terms of the best way into the industry, because I think this is always the bit that is sometimes the most challenging when you're looking to start your career. One of the first piece of advice I would give with hospitality is it is about how you behave in your attitude. If you have a positive, outgoing attitude, you interact with people in the right way and you show willingness to learn, that's the biggest thing that we're looking for. Generally speaking, skills can come on the job. Having said that, obviously, if we have an assistant, an assistant financial controller role available, we would need to have some experience as it's a managerial level. But generally speaking, for our line level roles, it's about having a positive attitude, and being ready to do the absolute best you can. And we can most of the time train those technical skills once on the job. I would definitely advise that those of you, if you're thinking of what to do when you're 16 onwards, is to consider apprenticeships. Apprenticeships are a fantastic way to learn. The way an apprenticeship works, some of you may already be aware. I'm not sure if anybody on the call is doing one right now, but they are 80% learning on the job and 20% learning off the job, which means that 80% of what you learn is actually doing the job and learning it whilst you're doing the job. So it's a great way to practically learn whilst also gaining a qualification at the same time. The other element as well is internships. So 3 months or 6 months or a year spent on a placement can also be a great way to learn about an industry. Also, to kind of secure if that's the industry that you want to go into as well, or where you see yourself long term in terms of which department within a hotel. It can be a really valuable way to learn. But also work experience. Lots of hotels are really open to work experience opportunities. And if I could advise you to do anything, it would be to spend a little bit of your holiday time or weekend time in gaining some work experience. It's really, really incredibly valuable, and you get such a real insight into what goes on in an industry. And I think it's a great way to learn. So I think that's kind of everything from me. There's probably some things I haven't covered which you might want to ask in questions. So please do feel free to ask those whenever you're ready.